Welcome to the Ride With Us podcast, presented by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, the world's largest ride enthusiast organization dedicated to the appreciation, promotion, and preservation of roller coasters around the globe. So please keep your hands and feet inside the podcast at all times as we welcome in your host.
Hello, enthusiasts. It's your host, Jessica Gardner. Earlier this summer, ACE members from across the country gathered in sunny California for the 2025 Preservation Conference, a weekend dedicated to celebrating and protecting the rich history of amusement parks and roller coasters. Over 3 incredible days, we visited 3 of California's most historic parks. We went to Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, SeaWorld San Diego, and the seaside classic Belmont Park. Each stop had a unique look at how these parks balance innovation, nostalgia, preserving beloved attractions while continuing to evolve for a new generation of guests. It was a weekend filled with behind-the-scenes tours, coaster rides, and plenty of stories about what it takes to keep our favorite thrills alive. I am joined today by Communications Director Derek Perry, who was there for every twist, turn, and drop with me. Hi, Derek. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing, Jessica?
I'm great. What was Preservation Conference like for you?
Well, first of all, I have to say that it was probably one of my favorite weekends of the year. It was so cool, us being California residents, that everyone came to us this time in the Pacific Southwest region, and I got to go to 3 iconic parks. And to see the parks through everyone else's eyes who don't get to normally ride these roller coasters, or for some people it was their first time. So it brought a level of excitement, but it was great to showcase the preservation at these 3 parks in 3 different ways, because as we know, Six Flags Magic Mountain has so many classic coasters. Gold Rusher, the park's first coaster dating back to 1971. Ninja, one of the last Arrow suspended coasters. Viper, one of the last operating Arrow 7 loopers. And Revolution, of course, an ACE roller coaster landmark known as the world's first modern vertical loop coaster. That was exciting to go on all those rides. Then, of course, moving on to the other 2 parks, but Six Flags Magic Mountain, that's the park I'm closest to, so it was really cool to have everyone there for that.
Yeah, we started there on Friday. First things first, we started in the West Pavilion, and there was a host park gift presentation. I always like that we do that. I don't know, has ACE always been doing that, like for years and years?
For years, ACE has always presented the host parks with a plaque. So Elizabeth Ringus, ACE president, started a new tradition a few years back. She goes through the ACE photo archives and selects a photo taken from an ACE member of a roller coaster at the park. She has it framed, and then it's presented during the event to the park.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And then it went to our behind-the-scenes tour of Twisted Colossus and Goliath. We met at the Scream Plaza, and we were brought behind the scenes all together, all as a group. And I wasn't really sure what that was going to be like. I don't know if you fully did. I thought maybe we'd get to sort of walk along the perimeter, maybe get a little bit of the infield. I didn't know that we would be, between Twisted Colossus and Goliath, this little narrow area, and under Goliath. It was incredible. The shots that we all got. I would have stayed there all day. We were all joking about having an Airbnb that would be like right in the middle of it, like a special ACE cabin that we could just camp out in the middle of these coasters. The team at Six Flags Magic Mountain made that so special for us. They pointed out where you could still see old track from the original Colossus. They pointed out all sorts of different things. Was that as incredible for you as it was for me, Derek?
Oh, yeah, completely incredible. And it was a surprise. When we first started the tour, we were basically between the parking lot and Twisted Colossus. I was like, oh, this is neat, but it's basically the view that you can get just from walking into the park. And then when we rounded the corner and we got so close to that first drop of Twisted Colossus, and then the Goliath train roaring through that tunnel right next to us, it was unbelievable. And then it gave me actually a new appreciation for Goliath. I always enjoyed the ride, but being underneath that twisted G-force finale of the ride with the train roaring above us, how happy people were and thrilled on the ride. And it just, I have a new appreciation for Goliath now. It was
That's so funny that you
unbelievable.
say that. Same here. I literally, my perspective on Goliath even shifted a little bit because it's been a coaster that I gray out on at the end, as I know some people do on that last helix. And so I sometimes avoid it. And after that infield, I had to get on it and ride it as many times as I could. I still grayed out, but it was, I loved waving at people, and just the vibes were so great. Everybody was really happy. I know that there were some brand new ACE members who were going to their first event. And so this was like day one of their first ACE event. And they right away get this amazing behind the scenes tour. Some of them who lived in California, and they were like, oh my gosh. And so I think it was such a great introduction to ACE for them. Shout out to my friend Claudia. Did you meet Claudia? She was great.
Claudia with the X2 tattoo?
Yes, with the X2 tattoo.
Yes.
And her and James rode, oh my gosh, they rode X2 so many times. They were just nonstop. It was hilarious. And the team was just letting them get right back on.
I love that Claudia got that X2 tattoo before she even rode X2.
Before she rode X2.
Yeah, she just knew she would love it. And there's a video, if you want to see that tattoo, Ben Weinrock, he edited together the ACE Preservation Conference video, and it's on the ACE YouTube channel. So we'll link to that and you can check out that tattoo. And it's funny that you said about graying out on Goliath, because for new people who ride Goliath for the first time, I always tell them, I almost didn't ride it my first visit to Six Flags Magic Mountain when Goliath was open because I was so nervous about blacking out on the ride. And then someone in line said that they do that trick that stunt pilots do, where they do like stomach crunches, like going up the lift hill and get the blood going to the head. And so you do those stomach crunches in your seat and you have your hands up. And I haven't really had a problem riding Goliath since then. It works. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try it. I'll try it this weekend. Who wants to go with me? Let me know. Yeah, that was great. All right. I'll try it. That night we also had ERT on Twisted Colossus, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, and they added Goliath on for us. So night rides galore. What a great time that was. Saturday, got up fresh and early to drive to San Diego because we were going to SeaWorld San Diego. We had a buffet lunch like almost right away at the Nautilus Pavilion, you know, that big tent for anybody who's ever been there that's right on the water. And there was another host park gift presentation, as we do. And Jim Potter spoke to us about maintenance and bringing Journey to Atlantis back. What did you think about that, Derek?
Yeah, it was really cool to hear what he had to say about how they're preserving Journey to Atlantis and refreshing it. I need to get down there and ride it again and check out the new theme and everything, but that they're, you know, preserving these attractions to make sure that they're available for years to come. And he also talked a little about the preservation of the environment and animals, which is another great thing about SeaWorld. So it kind of fit in the whole theme. You know, they do such an awesome job with conservation. So it's cool to hear about preservation of the coasters and then, you know, what they do with saving animals.
True. That night we had ERT on Electric Eel and Emperor. And for all of the coaster enthusiasts that were there who talked to me at all, I said, do not miss the jellyfish exhibit. There was like a group of people that were all excited about just like marathoning Emperor. And I was like, I hear you, but before, can we just please go to the jellyfish experience? And they're like, what is it? Why are we, you know, get coaster enthusiasts to like take time out of their day to go to a museum? Like, no, you know, right? But in this case, I got this big group to go, including Chris Roberry and Rachel. We were all there and walking through, and they all thanked me so much afterwards. That attraction, if you haven't seen it yet, you must go. It's just one of the most well done, like animal related attractions that I've ever seen, with the huge screens and the big aquariums. I love that. I can't speak highly enough of it. I know this is a coaster podcast, but if you go to SeaWorld San Diego, it's just so exciting to see that this is their newest exhibit, and I think their newest attraction currently. And just to see the level at which they are still putting attractions into the park is really exciting. Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah. That was the first time that I saw it during the preservation conference. I think you told me you have to go in there. So I made sure between the coaster riding, I went in there. And yeah, it was definitely a highlight of the park.
Everybody leaves there and is like, I just learned so much about jellyfish. But of course, the coasters are also great. Manta, gotta love Manta. I feel like they could use some more. Maybe we'll see them coming out with some coasters soon. They've got the space for it. I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, I think the whole thing with the California Coastal Committee, I don't know if you've been following that throughout the years, but I think they can build 2 more big roller coasters. I could be wrong, but I'm excited to see what those roller coasters will be.
Same. And then on Sunday was the big day at Belmont Park. We started the day up in what they called the ACE Lounge, the Coaster Terrace. They had like a special area for us. If you've been there and you can sort of picture it, it's across from the Giant Dipper, upstairs in this beautiful new area that they've made with these glass windows that has a deck outside. So on one side, you can look at the coaster in Belmont Park. On the left, you can see a little bit of plunge. And if you look further out, you can see the ocean. We saw dolphins and people flying kites. It was so beautiful. They had a lovely coffee station set up for us up there, which was so great, little breakfasty things. And then we were allowed to walk down before the park opened and get a behind the scenes tour of the park operations and maintenance of Giant Dipper, their 100-year-old roller coaster. What an exciting time that they had for us. They had so many of these maintenance guys there answering any questions that we had, taking us into these tiny spaces inside the maintenance bay. And literally, they spent so much time with us. I couldn't have been more excited to be there. Me and you, Derek, had actually already seen a little bit of behind the scenes tour last year. We had been invited down to talk on behalf of California Attractions and Park Association, and they were nice enough. The people at Belmont Park were like, "Hey, you want to see a little bit of behind the scenes?" We said, "Sure."
Yes,
so,
definitely.
We got a little private tour, but how fabulous that all ACE members that were there for Preservation Conference then also did that. They split everybody up into groups, and they showed us how cool was that, seeing the transfer track that they actually have to push the roller coaster. Like there's no hydraulics, there's no, you know what I mean? That they literally just manually push the coaster off into the maintenance bay onto the transfer tracks. And the giant wheel with the pulley system that actually gets this coaster up the hill, super old school style. I loved it, just to be able to really see how well this coaster was put together and designed. That was so cool. And then after that, we did get some ERT on Giant Dipper. And then after that was the Centennial Award presentation. Derek, tell everybody about this Centennial Award.
So the ACE Centennial Award is a new honor recognizing roller coasters that have reached the remarkable milestone of being built at least 100 years ago. Now, there aren't too many 100-year-old roller coasters, but it's a new thing that ACE is creating these beautiful bronze plaques and presenting them to parks. The Giant Dipper at Belmont Park was the first one to receive them. So Josh Brown, the ACE History and Preservation Director, presented the plaque, and Jason Wright, who's an ACE member, he created the design with help from Dave Honor and the History and Preservation Committee. So Jason Wright was actually there, and he was saying that he wanted to kind of take the old style, some of the fonts and like the old style look, and throw in some modern graphics. So it came out really cool. And how awesome that we were there for the first presentation of this. So if a roller coaster turns 100 years old, they will receive it. But then also retroactively, other roller coasters that are over 100 will receive it. For example, Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk's Giant Dipper turned 100 last year, so they'll receive the plaque at an upcoming ACE event. So yeah, it's a great way to let people at the park know that this is a century-old coaster. It's a living landmark that you're about to experience. And it's just another way to honor these parks that are keeping these classic coasters going for all of us to ride.
I love it because it's already a landmark coaster, of course, but then to also now have this Centennial Award just makes it even that more special, and hopefully just shows the park and the community what the importance of preservation and the importance of, keeping these beautiful, this history alive.
Yeah,
it's American history. It's world history. So it was so exciting.
It was honestly emotional. Yeah, seeing the presentation, being there at the Pacific Ocean, the coaster right there, everyone enjoying it. It brought me back to the first time that I came out to California. We had a family vacation and we drove by it with our mom and dad. Our uncle lived in San Diego and he showed us the roller coaster. It wasn't open at the time. It was closed and they didn't know if it would ever be open again. So, all these years later to be riding the coaster and it's 100 years old, it is incredible.
That is amazing, which of course brings us to Tim Cole. So listeners, if you are a coaster enthusiast and or an ACE member and you don't know the name Tim Cole, you really should. It is arguable that without his efforts and passion, Giant Dipper at Belmont Park might not be operating today. He also might know the most history of Belmont Park than any person in the world. And if you haven't heard of him and his saving the coaster story, you have to hear it. So when we heard that he was presenting at Preservation Conference, I asked him, could we mic him up just in case the audio would be okay enough so that we could put it on the ACE podcast for all of you to hear. So please understand that he already had a microphone. He was in this glass room, the coaster's going, there's seagulls, there's music. The audio, of course, was a little rough to get. Shout out to all of the people involved in making this audio that we're about to share with you now listenable. First of all, thanks to Robert Engel for helping me get the footage and set Tim up. Thanks to Tim for allowing it. Thanks to Bob Randolph. Thanks to Ben Weinrack, who stepped in and also worked some magic here. We hope you enjoy it. I would happy to present to you now the presentation that Tim Cole gave on how they saved Belmont Park.
I can't believe it's been 35 years ago tomorrow that the Giant Dipper reopened to the public after exactly 5,000 days of non-operating. And while I appreciate the accolades and all that, and it was a lot of fun having something to do with having it restored, there's really a lot of people through history that played some part in getting to why the roller coaster is here today. It was built by the Prior Church and it opened on July 4th, 1925. And it was part of the Mission Beach Amusement Center that opened on Memorial Day weekend in 1925. Believe it or not, the permits weren't approved for this thing until June 8th, 1925. And the roller coaster opened the following July 4th. So this thing was assembled in 4 weeks, which was incredible. And when it opened, it was unfinished. There wasn't a drop of paint on the whole thing, not even in the station house. It was all raw wood. Tunnels and the braking weren't done. So yeah, they really opened this thing in quite a hurry. And this is all there was to the amusement center when it opened. Most of the park was concentrated over on the north side. It was just the roller rink, the Mission Beach Plunge, which is still here in a different kind of building now. Things sort of came and went. There was a Luna Park that was only here for a couple of years. But for an early part of its history, there was really nothing much there. Although John D. Spreckles, who dreamed it up, envisioned it expanding. He was going to have an amphitheater with water shows on the bay over there. He was going to have an ice skating rink and some kind of an entertainment auditorium. But he died in 1926, and when he died, so did all of his other visions never really came to fruition. And that's in 1926, after the
roller coaster was painted and the lights were put on. Prior to roller coasters, station houses were almost identical from coast to coaster. And I always thought that's how you could kind of tell the difference between a prior church coaster and a Fred Church roller coaster. As his station houses were somewhat different, like on Cyclone Racer and the Airplane, for example. And there was one point where they windowed in the station house. You can kind of almost see window panes along the top of the railings, which they painted red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, which was something that when we were doing our paint shipping and trying to come up with the historical colors on this, it was a bit confusing at first because I didn't think that there would be 3 different colors at the same time. And the one thing I always wondered is, Santa Cruz has that wonderful tunnel, like right from the get-go when you jump out of the station house. And we were always wondering if that wasn't intended for this, because you can see the frame of the tunnel went all the way up to the station house. But since this thing opened up in such a hurry, and they hadn't finished the tunnel when it opened, we always kind of wondered if they discovered that it was better left uncovered so that people could watch the trains as they left. And in the 40s, roughly, this park kind of fell into squalor. There were several operators that took over the park, and everyone came on board all excited, and everybody, the city, a great lease and everything, and then great promises of money that they were going to invest. And within like the first couple of months already, the owner suing the city, and the city, back and forth because of lease disagreements, and you told us this and this didn't happen and all. The city gave up. They said, well, we're just going to run the park ourselves, but we need a consultant. So they went shopping around for a consultant, and they found Jack Gray, who was an amusement park designer. He was a watercolorist. He just came in and he said, I'll do it, I'm interested. So the city gave a lease to him, and he took over the Mission Beach Amusement Center in 1954. And he's the one who changed the name to Belmont Park. Now, you see, it was an honor to a friend of his that he had worked with in Canada, part of the Belmont in Courchevel, Quebec. I think that's who he named the park after. So this big bushy tree right here, I think that was partially responsible for the fire that burned the roller coaster exactly 1 year after Jack Gray took over the lease of the park. And if you go back and ride the roller coaster today, if you look up at those trusses, you can still see evidence of the fire. You can still see where the wood was once charred there. When Jack Gray took over the Mission Beach Coaster Company lease after they went bankrupt, he rebuilt the roller coaster cars with a slightly different kind of design. Jack Gray changed the name to Belmont Park, and he gave the whole park a classic kind of look. Are you familiar with Googie architecture, like it was in the 50s, 60s with he gave the whole park that kind of unique look. And he expanded the park southwards. Inside all these buildings were the ones where it had the shifting staircases and the buckling ramps that you walk through, and the spinning disc where people got flung off, and the room with the tilt, you walk in and balls rolled up floors. And during the downtime that the roller coaster was closed for 3 years because of that fire, he added another little roller coaster. He ordered one of those Schmeck Little Dippers or Big Dippers. And there was an amusement park in Venice called Hobbyland that had recently closed. He purchased the roller coaster, and then it moved down here for a few years. And then that was dismantled, and then it got moved to the LA County Fair. And if you look up the movie, I think it's Attack of the Clones, there's a big shootout scene on that roller coaster. I think it closed finally in 1975, and it was the moment. When the roller coaster burned down during the repairs, he also changed the design of the station house. So it went from this classic prior church Victorian look, and then he kind of gave it that space age, sort of googie looking style. It was done both, I think, for structural purposes. When the roller coaster closed after the fire, the Giant Dipper sign that was up on top was just discarded. And I'm not sure if it was an intentional that they weren't going to call it the Giant Dipper anymore, or if they just didn't bother to put it back or what. And then everybody eventually forgot that it was that name, and they just started calling it roller coaster. When Bill Evans took over the park in 1968, he originally intended on scrapping the park. He saw an opportunity to build a hotel. He owns the Bahia Hotel across the street over here, and he saw this property as a possibility to expand his enterprise. So he made an agreement to take over the lease on the land, but the community just vehemently opposed, and so he was forced to keep the amusement park open until finally it closed down. But in the meantime, I mean, he really put a lot of money into the park. The city made him put lots of landscaping in and clean it up, and he really did a good job, and his heart was really in it. The roller rink and the plunge were also left standing. The roller coaster too. Everything else was removed by the end of 1977. I think the park closed on November 24th, 1976. I first rode the roller coaster in 1975. I first became interested in roller coasters after my love affair with carnivals. In my early years, when I was 4, 5, 6, 7, my dad was stationed in Adak, Alaska. Now that's some tiny little island on the Aleutian chain. It's way out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Bering Sea. And there was nothing there. It was very isolated. It was snowy all the time, gray. It was like The Wizard of Oz, it's Dorothy's Kansas. It was just nothing. And that was during my formative years too. You know, living there was like living inside a black and white snowy television. And then my dad got stationed to Honolulu, Hawaii. Now imagine the contrast going from there to that. So I think within the first couple of weeks of our arriving in Hawaii, we went to the 50th State Fair. And that was my first exposure to anything colorful, anything lights, any crowds, people, smells, food, odor, everything. Everything was just brand new, and it was such a shock on my senses that I think that's kind of what embedded that atmosphere. I was addicted, and I had to have more. But unfortunately, you know, my parents didn't really care for things like carnivals and things like that, so they rarely took me to any, so which made me want to go all the more. And then I became obsessed with them. I was building out Tinker Toys and other toy kits, and I took my train set and I made it into a little roller coaster. They had a Mad Mouse roller coaster at the 50th State Fair, but I didn't. I was too small to ride it then. And then we came in 1974, we arrived back to San Diego. My dad wanted to retire here. And I was born here, by the way. I was born over at Mercy Hospital, and then we went to Alaska, Hawaii, and then came back here. And I didn't know about Belmont Park until I just happened to meet a friend of mine, a kid that would become my friend, and his family got to go to places like Disneyland and camping, and then he told me about Magic Mountain, and he showed me this map and brochure for Magic Mountain, and he said, "You heard about Belmont Park, right?" And I said, "Belmont what?" He says, "Yeah, Belmont Park." I said, "No, I never heard of that." So it wasn't until a school field trip when I was in the 8th grade that we got to go, and that was the first. I mean, I had seen wooden roller coasters on television, like on the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family, but I never ever saw one up close until the bus pulled right over here, and I just was like I was awestruck. So we go into the park, and I wrote a few other things, you know, to kind of warm up to getting on the roller coaster. And then I got on the roller coaster, and the first thing I noticed when I climbed into the cars, no seatbelts. And I didn't know, and I was too young to know that was uncommon. I thought there would be like a thick braided rope that you had to tie in a knot or something. But no, I mean, there's this little bar that you could stand up on the seat and just slip right down into the car. But that's one thing too about prior church roller coasters, that a lot of them really weren't designed to have a lot of negative G's. If you notice, it's just kind of casually rolls over the hilltops. I shouldn't say this, but you could ride this with no lap bars. I've done it. And got in trouble for it. Yeah, and with no issue at all. But so, you know, here I am. I just rode this roller coaster. Oh my God, I love this. Oh, and it closes. And I'm pissed, and I'm hurt. And I took it personally. I said, it's always the way I fall in love with something, and either my parents take it away to deprive me of it, or something happens, and I don't get to have access to it anymore. So there was talk about tearing it down, and I thought, well, I like to build models too, so I'll, build a model of it, and that in some way will be preserving the memory of it. So one day after, so uncharacteristic of me, one day I was in the 10th grade, it was 11th grade. It was one cold, rainy morning, and Dad took me to the bus stop so I could go to school. I took the bus in the other grade on a rainy day and came to Belmont Park with my little pocket 110 and schematic camera. And got off, and I took a quick few shots that I was going to use to build this model, and that was that. I thought, okay, I'm never going to see this thing again. And then in 1977, I went to Magic Mountain one summer, and we walked in the gate, and right on the plaza is this gorgeous model of this big wooden roller coaster, and on the bottom it said, "Coming next spring. The world's largest, fastest, tallest wooden roller coaster ever built anywhere, a racing roller coaster." And of course that would turn out to be Colossus. And as someone who wanted to be an architect and was really just always impressed by looking at models, said, that's what I want my model of the Belmont Park roller coaster to look like. Which fueled my passion for wanting to build one even more. So in 1978, I drove down here as soon as I got my driver's license. I went down here in the park, and I'm walking around, and this thing did not have any fence around it at all. Anybody could just climb on it at their free will. But I was afraid that I was just going to get caught and called down, and I would never. So I tried to remain discreet, and I found a hole in the fence. There was a little wooden fence that was wrapped around the north end of the roller coaster. So anyway, once I climbed in that little hole, and it was like Alice in Wonderland. When she crawled through the looking glass, once I got there, it was like I was in a whole other world. All the noise, everything. Suddenly it got quiet, it was peaceful, and I heard a voice, "If you fix me, I will come." And I remember these kids, these old toe-headed surfer boys, were also in there experimenting. And because I was a few years older than them, they thought I was some kind of an older adult who was going to chase them out. And they kept asking me, like I would know, "Are you guys going to fix this? Are you going to tear this down?" And I thought, so, like, I'm older than you, so I should know. So there were many votes that went before the city council in the first foothold that this roller coaster had being preserved was by Tony Ciani, and he was a city historical architect. And he was very concerned that the city manager was rushing too hard, putting too much pressure on the owner to have this thing torn down as soon as possible, before any consideration of it possibly being restored could be brought up. So he's the one that actually applied to have the roller coaster put on the National Register of Historic Places. And that nomination alone is what kept the city council from being able to do anything, really, until the possibility of fixing this thing was fully studied. Because the city thought it would lose, if it was given landmark status, the city feared it was going to lose funding if it was torn down. So they kind of withhold, but they figured a way around it. And finally they said, "Mr. Evans, you have to go through the process to get your demolition permit." So he didn't think he should have to pay to have the roller coaster torn down, because it's not my fault the park closed. You guys came in and closed it because you said I owed you money. But that happened because you were making unrealistic demands of me. I wasn't able to give you your rent money, but I made the park pretty, and you still came in and you closed the park. So I don't want to have to pay to have the roller coaster torn down. So he had an idea to turn the roller coaster into a non-operational scenic sculpture. And I remember the day I looked in the paper. It was March of 1980. And the headline said, or the little header said, roller coaster scene, a skyline sculpture. And I went, what's this? And they were going to paint it and put lights on it, and they were going to make it part of this new shopping center called Coaster Village, is what he called it. So right away I got on the phone and I called the Bahia Hotel and I talked to the secretary, Melanie, and started pelting her with all these questions. And she said, well, you don't know too much about it, blah, blah, blah. I know they're talking about maybe putting a restaurant at the top and people would get in poster cars and ride up to the top. It sounded far-fetched, but at that time I believed anything. And I said, if there's anything I can do to be part of this, I want to, you know. But really, I just wanted to be someone who could be in the know, to know what's going on the entire time. So she said, well, there's an unveiling at the Bahia Hotel in a couple days. You're invited to come look, you know. So me and my girlfriend at the time, we went to, it was on the top floor of the Bahia Hotel. And oh my gosh, we're talking like politicians and city planners and suits and ties. Of course, I'm dressed up in my little suit, trying to look professional. I'm a skinny little twig and walking around. And we're looking at these beautiful renderings on easels and old historical pictures of the park. And I got to meet Bill Evans. And I was trying to muster up as much professionalism as I could. And I said, hi, Mr. Evans, I'm Tim Cole. And I love your idea, and I would certainly love to be involved in it somehow. So I wrote my name and number on a paper napkin and gave it to him. And he said, okay, well, it'll be a while before anything, we know anything, so we'll be in touch. And it was like about a year later, well, anyway, not long after that happened, and this happened, the fire. There were 2 fires that happened within 1 month of each other, set by the same guy. And apparently there were some homeless people living under inside some of the rooms in the park, and one of them was found to be sort of troublesome, and they kept kicking him out. So he got revenge at them by setting fire to their living quarters, and unfortunately the roller coaster got caught up in it too. This was the second fire. And it happened in the 2 worst areas. The first fire was right under where the braking section is. And you can imagine all the moving parts and grease and all that's there. And the second fire was right behind that big flywheel and the motor down that area. Of course, you have all that grease and that got caught up in fire. One day I was hanging out with some friends in Belmont Park, which is over by the zoo. And another roller coaster fan friend of mine, we were talking about the fire, and some guy I didn't know turns around and he says, oh, are you talking about the fire? Oh yeah, I drove by there the night it happened because I worked up in PB, and there was still smoke and I could smell, there were still the fire trucks and all. And then he told us about this job he had at a restaurant just right up here on Mission Boulevard. And, and we're hiring too, and it's fun, it's a busboy, the waiters are really cute, and And I saw, if you need a job, they're hiring. So I wanted a job. So I applied and I was hired that day. And it was great because every single day from college or home, whatever, they gave me an excuse to drive by the roller coaster. And I would always stop in and check on it. And I sort of felt like that I was watching over it somehow. And so it just creeped more and more and more into my life. That's where the first fire was, and kind of you can see the blackened area in the middle. It wasn't too severe. In spite of the fires, the city councilman for the area at the time said, oh yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's not that bad. It can be easily fixed. It's just wood. So, but we really need to try to figure out how to save this thing. So, along with Bill Evans' idea of Coaster Village, he said, well, we shouldn't restrict it to just that one plan. I mean, we should give other people an opportunity to throw their hand in and come up with ways to utilize this vacant lot. So they had other developers propose plans, like there was a hotel, there was a water park, there was one plan that included knocking down the roller coaster and putting up a big lawn, excuse me. And another timeshare. There was one other one, I can't remember what it was. And something was missing. And I just said, that's all fun and good, but and not all those plans included keeping all of the roller coaster. And if it did, the roller coaster wasn't going to run. It was just going to be a wooden sculpture. So I went miniature golfing with a friend one day, and there were like Ferris wheel and some go-karts there too. And we were miniature golfing, and I said, you know, it'd be really cool if, you know, you get these rides, but oh man, what if there was a roller coaster here too? But of course the park was too small to have a roller coaster, and then it clicked. And I went, oh, they could build like a family fun center under the roller coaster. It wouldn't run, but you could use the frame, and inside the roller coaster you could have a miniature golf course and go-karts and one of those jungle gym mazes for kids and ropes and ladders, and the roller coaster, the go-karts could ride on like some of the lower inside the roller. So right away, I said, I came up with it July 2nd, 1981 is when I drew these. My concept for turning Belmont Park into kind of like a family fun center. And I love this idea so much, and I hated it that it would just exist on paper. So late in August of 1981, that's when they were going to have the presentation of all these other people, these developers who were going to present the idea. So I had done other drawings of these, but like tried to make them look as professional as I could. And 20 years old, and I'm standing in front of the city council, and I'm holding up these cheap watercolor drawings, saying, hey, you know, this is an idea no one's ever considered. How about, you know, doing this? And I wasn't thinking that they were really going to consider it, but I thought that maybe in the audience somebody might go, oh, that's interesting. Let's find out more about this. So they nodded, the city council nodded, they said, thank you, Tim, and I went to sit down. Bill Evans was there, and he actually got up and came around and looked at my drawing to see what it was I was doing. But at that meeting where I stood up and showed those watercolor drawings, Carol Lindemann, she was the other one. She was the president of the State Art Heritage Organization. The city councilman called her up and said, we've got to save this thing. I'm not going to let these other plans go through. We don't want commercial development here at Belmont Park. We just want a park, but we don't want to tear the roller coaster down. We need someone to save it. So she stepped down from her position on the board of directors as president and went before the city council, and she said, Bill Evans has agreed to donate the roller coaster to our new group, the Save the Coaster Committee. If we're interested and if you give us time, we can study to see how it can be done. And right after the meeting, I went up to her and I said, I'm Tim. How can I join? What can I do? You know? And then she gave me her phone number, and that night I must have had her on the phone for like 4 hours. She did most of the talking. We formed the Save the Coaster Committee, me and another Mission Beach resident, Norman Starr, who was a contractor, who looked at it as a great business opportunity, who started the committee. And Carol, she brought in other friends, the people she had worked with on preservation projects before. So when I went to my first Save the Coaster Committee meeting in November of 1981, there were really no other coaster fans there. I mean, it was all just preservationists. They were all concerned about a landmark that just happened to be a roller coaster that was going to be torn down. And they found in me the coaster fan. They found me, okay, this is why we want to do this. It's important to people like him. That's why we want to do this. One of the things we had to do before Bill Evans could donate the roller coaster to us is he needed a value on it. So we contacted Bill Cobb, the roller coaster designer Bill Cobb, who did Texas Cyclone and Jet Joy Scream and Le Monstre and all those other wonderful rides, to fly out to evaluate our roller coaster to give us, to tell us, number one, can it be salvaged? And number two, what is it worth? So he valued, I think it was $800 and some odd $1,000. So Bill Evans, a smart businessman, so like I said before, he didn't want to have the responsibility of financially tearing down the roller coaster. So he donated it to a group, relieved him of all responsibility, and he got a value on it so he could write it off as a charitable contribution on his taxes. So that's a smart businessman. During our time, ACE VIPs came, and I always took them on a tour. And other people that were coaster fans that we were lucky to got to meet, like Randy Rasmussen, who did wonderful, accurate representations of old roller coasters like the Texas Cyclone and the River Bobs and the Crystal Beach Cyclone. He came down and he donated his time and surveyed, the Giant Dipper, because we had to have something to give the city. We had to meet a certain criteria before the city would allow us to officially form the Save the Coaster Committee and become a 501c3. You just can't form a group like that. It's got to go through a process before it can become official. So we got a roller coaster now. We're owners of a roller coaster. Imagine being 15 and riding this roller coaster, and the next thing you know, you're one of the owners. And that was at the time. I was lucky to be. And so the California Conservation Corps, which is a government-funded conservation group, came and started doing a lot of work on it. And really, all they could do was dig sand, peel paint, tear off some of Jack Ray's Googie architecture style. One of the things I told about the Giant Dipper sign, that's the Giant Dipper sign. Well, we found it still after all those years up on the station house when they were tearing the things down. It was folded in half, and it was too far gone to be salvaged, having been up on the roof all those years. And we really couldn't hang on to it. And so we had to, when they tore the plunge building, we just had no use for it. So unfortunately, the roller coaster cars were also kept in the plunge building in an old jail cell. They had a holding area here for park rallies. And that's in the old plunge building, and that's what the California Conservation Corps did too. That was the first thing they did, was they converted they tore all the walls down, and then we had our construction office inside the old plunge. And in order to maximize visibility for the police, they took rooftops and everything. They tore down the fence so that they could look under the ride better, so they could surveil better. And on this beam across, you can see Church and Pryor signature. I don't know if their signature, but that's rusted away. We tried to save it, and that didn't work. Over the years, we had a lot of fundraisers. That's our chili cook-off. We had a lot of work days. Volunteers come in, spend a day scraping paint, what have you, painting, cleaning up the site. That was important, was to keep the site looking clean. We rented a man lift and was scraping paint and power washing and whatnot. But the only thing, though, is that although while that was all preparation to restore the roller coaster, it really did nothing but make it look worse. Taking all the paint off, and then it just looks like peeling lumber. It made it look even more trashy, which made it harder to convince people that this thing could be saved and could be restored. But we weren't using paint, we were using like this opaque oil-based stain that was supposed to be some kind of a wood preservative. The California Conservation Corps were only here for less than a year, and suddenly they had all these restrictions put on them where, they can't climb higher than 15 feet. Well, most of the ride is that tall. So there was only so much they could do. In 1986, we got a $150,000 grant, which enabled us to repair under the station house. We put in brand new footers, and we were able to rebuild the original front of the station house. And we also rebuilt the burn sections too. We were able to do a lot to cosmetically restore the roller coaster, but to do so mechanically and structurally, it was way expensive. The stain that we used with the paint had some kind of an effect where I don't know if it was a mildewy or a moldy thing that formed on top of the wood from the moisture, or if it was pulling something from inside the wood. But over a matter of months, whatever we painted would suddenly look gray and sooty. And we would try paint, and it would just come back. So I found that bleach cured the problem. So we had the whole thing sprayed in bleach. That would be a great Ripley's, or what do they call it, true or false. The roller coaster was sprayed with bleach to make it white. It's actually true. This is one of my favorite stories. The day that they filmed a scene from Top Gun in the plunge building. The cast was here. They used our construction office as an access to get into one of the other rooms where they were filming the locker room scenes. So in our construction office, the props people for the movie were really impressed with all these archives and archaeological things that we found in the sand in front of the amusement park. They were like, wow, they're props people, so they're really impressed at the authenticity of these. And we're chatting, and later on, the props master says to me, we need stuff to pin up on a billboard in the deck. Do you have any paperwork, office paperwork that we can use that looks official? And I said, yeah. So I gave him pages from my scrapbook. So next time you see the movie, look for it. I got the roller coaster in the movie Top Gun. And this is around the same time that ACE had their 10th convention here in 1987, CoasterCon 10. And that was a lot of fun because with the old cars back outside, we had to put them back up on the tracks. So one kid that's a friend of mine, who also was a volunteer, just had this idea. Let's push the cars up into the station house and then let them roll down the thing. We have enough people. He's like, come on, Jill, let's do it. So a bunch of us climbed on, got and pushed two of the roller coaster cars up into the station house, and we all climbed on. And all the night before, and all day the next day. And I can't tell you, so many things could have gone wrong. Anybody could have climbed up on here at any point and got hurt, fell off, and that would have been the end of it. As a matter of fact, Kim Peterson, the late dear Kim Peterson, when he filmed this night, we showed it at the Santa Cruz part of that same convention. And Dana later on said to me, "I already had gotten hurt on that. We would have turned around and not done the project." So, in 1968, the city inspectors closed the roller coaster right in the middle of the summer because that whole area above the Belmont sign, none of these posts were there before, and it was starting to sink and crack and buckle. So the city said, "We have to fix that." They fixed it, they put those posts underneath. Well, the shopping center wanted that access back. So they said, we'll pay to, when they were building the shopping center, they said, we'll pay to replace those trusses. So we did, they put steel in there. The shopping center wanted to take over the roller coaster. They said, the Save the Coaster Committee isn't going fast enough. We're opening up the shopping center, and we don't want that as a bad reflection of our shopping center. And of course, we resisted as long as we could, and so actually it was the shopping center people that contacted the people up at Santa Cruz, and they said, we want to take over this project, but we know nothing about fixing the roller coaster. Can you consult us? So Dana Morgan from Morgan Manufacturing and Ed Hutton, who was the general manager of the Santa Cruz Beach Board back at the time, got together, and they came down and they looked at the coaster and they said, well, we might be interested in doing it. So they started a company and called it the San Diego Seaside Company. And then on September 1st, 1989, we relinquished the ownership of our roller coaster to the city. The city now owns it, and the city leased the roller coaster and the property on which it sat to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. And the San Diego Seaside Company hired me as their assistant manager because of my know-how. And that's the day that we made the transfer of ownership and gave him a copy of a symbolic gesture of plans and the keys. Look, all the people to contact to come down here and look at roller coaster just happened to be the people at Santa Cruz with a roller coaster and a track design very similar to ours because they knew exactly what they were doing when they came to fix our roller coaster. And during this time, the roller coaster was my number one obsession. It took priority over everything. My schoolwork and all that. Matter of fact, I barely graduated college because I was not attentive to my studies. I was more interested in getting this fixed. Dana Morgan once said to me, he said it would have cost less money to tear this thing down and rebuild it from the ground up than to try to they had to manufacture these clamps to hold the structure up so they could dig underneath and put new concrete footings in. So finally, this is August 3rd, 1990. That's the very first test run. It was Dana Morgan and Bill Kelly. And then, of course, I got to go right after. A rendering I had done to demonstrate like what the area would look like with the carousel and with the coaster museum and the coaster. But I didn't know that they were actually going to use that drawing of my museum and turn it into to the root museum. Any questions? Yes.
Do you get to ride for free?
Do I get to ride for free? I was recently just given, the Save the Coaster Committee, one of our fundraising things, is we did lifetime ride passes for $25. And they still honor those. And I think there's somewhere like 500 of them. Of course, half those people I'm sure have passed on. But recently, the Belmont Park awarded those still of us on the Save the Coaster Committee that are still around a lifetime ride pass. You know, it's funny, on the old lifetime ride passes, I'm the one who came up with all the little rules on the back, like no more than 5 rides a day, you can't go on major holidays, and da-da-da, right? But this what I got now is unlimited, and it's on everything, so. Yeah, looking killing it. Happened last month at their celebration at the Centennial.
Did you bring it with you?
Did I bring it? I didn't bring the pass with me. I didn't bring the gold little one that they brought me. No, but I have that's in a safe place. But I have it's like a gold medal credit card. It's really cool. Well, thank you. It's just an honor to be standing here in front of you, especially because I know you guys are the ones that really truly appreciate the efforts and know the current climate where it comes to and saving these things and the ones that are endangered. And I would urge you to look into seeing what you can do. Any ideas, write it down, send it in. Just say, hey, try this. Because nothing at this point is too ridiculous. So, okay, thank you, everybody.
Derek, as Lauren Heller says at the end of the ACE YouTube Preservation Conference wrap-up video, now that's preservation, baby.
That is preservation, baby.
I had no idea the extent that Tim was actually involved. And there's even more to the story, and you can find it out all in his book, Saving Belmont, An Up and Down Journey, which he had there, which of course I bought. He was signing it for ACE members. It is available online. We will link that as well in our show notes if you want to find it. Derek, what did you think of Tim's preservation? I know you'd heard the story. Had you heard all of it?
That was the first time that I heard the whole story, and it was the highlight of the weekend, I think. I honestly don't think Giant Dipper would be here without Tim Cole and all the volunteers and what they did. It was really fun to hear all the stories, and I'm excited to read his book.
Me too. And Tim Cole was made an honorary ACE member in 2017. That was absolutely well-founded. I'm so glad that we did that. Thank you again to Tim Cole for everything you did. I think that something that I really just love about his story also is that it really just proves that one person can make a difference and everyone should try, right? No matter what it is, follow what you love, follow your dreams. He was just a kid who loved a roller coaster, and look what happened, Love it. So again, Tim, a million times thank you. Derek, what do we have to look forward to? Do we know anything about Preservation Conference next year?
It hasn't been officially announced yet, and I know the events team is still working on it, but it looks like it will be in August, and an announcement should be coming soon, so stay tuned to all the ACE socials, and we'll get that information out to you as soon as all the information is finalized. And we have to thank, of course, ACE Events Director Dan Jones and the events team for putting on this amazing weekend. Like you always say, it couldn't be done without volunteers volunteering their time. Jason Wright, who created the Centennial Award, he also created the Preservation Conference logo this year.
The t-shirt was so good.
Yeah, and then there was some merch sold with that logo. Thanks to Jackie Edwards and Vanessa Thomas for running that store, and Xander Lee, ACE Merchandise Director, for getting that shirt together, and
he
to everybody.
It this year. He did so good with all the merch. It just keeps getting better and better.
So good. And the volunteers at registration who kicked off the weekend, donating their time: Luke Reynolds, Daniel Yu, Doug Perry, registration event coordinator Elena Marzell, Stephen Marzell. Thank you to all the volunteers who donated their time. And thank you to everyone at the parks for making this a perfect weekend.
It was an amazing weekend. And thank you, Derek, for coming on here and talking to us about it. Everybody, don't forget to check the website, ridewithace.com. And remember that ACE is everywhere you consume your social media. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Make sure you're subscribed to ACE's pages on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Discord. Follow ACE everywhere to stay on top of all the coaster and preservation news coming out and to hear what your ACE membership has to offer. Thanks for listening. Hope you get to ride a coaster today.
Ride With Us is produced by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, a registered 501c3 organization. Visit ridewithace.com for additional information, and we will see you at the parks.